So, welcome today, and I'm excited actually to talk to you about this topic about loneliness and how we all feel it. It's a universal feeling, but it is a very challenging feeling for a lot of my clients. And it's something I've had to work through over time in my life. So, I really wanted to take this time to talk about it and work on ways of reframing it so that it becomes a gift instead of something that we dread. So, when do you feel lonely? When I was thinking about this, I remembered different times in my life where I felt the most lonely. And the first one was definitely when I was younger. Like, I can remember that really painful time when I think it's junior high, when the idea of being alone on a Friday night is just bone crushingly difficult. And I was that kid who I didn't want to sit in my room because then I'd have to deal with myself. I'd have to deal with my thoughts. I'd have to deal with my insecurities. I'd have to deal with my anxieties. And I didn't want to. So I would avoid that at all costs. And another time that I went through that feeling was definitely when I was a single mom. That was for many years. I was a single mom for 14 years. I wasn't lonely the whole time, but there were times where I felt it when I would go to a parent event and there would be all couples and I would be alone. And I remember feeling this sinking feeling, or just, I remember my daughter would go every other Christmas. She would spend with her dad, and every other break and every other summer. And this started when she was young. She was probably 5. So I went through that every summer for a long time, like, I don't know, 12 years. And I remember the first half of her being away, I would feel the feeling of loneliness because I would come home from work and she's not there and her bedroom is empty and it's just me again at dinner. And I would feel the feeling. And then at the second half, there's something that would shift inside of me where I'd actually allow myself to just let it happen. And it would flip into a feeling of solitude where I found myself actually really enjoying the time and space where she wasn't there because I could allow myself to think about things, daydream, just be with myself in a way that I just wasn't doing when she was home. So I found both sides of the coin happening to me during those visits. And I think it's really interesting how similar they are, but they're just that little degree of shift from loneliness to solitude makes the world of difference because it becomes a welcomed feeling. I also wanted to share a quote by Brene Brown, and she says, "Sometimes the most dangerous thing for us is not the aloneness, but the stories we tell ourselves about what it means." Somewhere along the way, we feel or we believe, or culturally, we're conditioned to believe that being alone is not good. It's just better to be in company, in the company of a relationship, and a family, and a group. And it's really not coming from, I believe, from deep inside of us. I mean, of course, we need culture, we need people, we need connection. But there's so much that I personally gained from being alone. I don't know why the culture is what it is, but it is. In the New Lens method, which is my coaching method, I talk about empowered vision and how when I'm working with clients, we really get into how are you seeing this? Because on a certain level, nothing is real. It's all the stories that we tell ourselves about it. So how are you feeling about this loneliness? Because that's really how it's going to be for you. And if you look at it and say, I'm going to be alone for the next 10 days, let's just say, because in my case, it's true. Like right now at this moment in time, my husband and I go between Boston and London, and he's leaving on Monday, and I'm here until the following Thursday. So I'm basically alone for 10 days. And I can see that so many different ways. I could look at this as, this is the 10 days I am so excited about, because every morning I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have this ritual, and I'm going to have the house completely to myself, and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And I could turn this into an incredibly nourishing and enriching retreat for myself. Or I can fall into a pit of despair because I'll be alone, and how am I going to cope with that? So it really is about how I'm seeing this, and how I choose to see it is what it's going to be. So I'm glad we're talking about this right now, because I'm choosing to make this a very relaxing, peaceful time. So this is the big part of the coaching technique. We go deep into, how do you see this, and how can you see this differently? I wanted to say also that solitude isn't punishment. It can be preparation. And I can share that the best ideas I've ever had have come to me when I was completely alone. And I don't mean alone having somebody upstairs and I'm downstairs, or I'm alone in a coffee shop. I mean alone. Like, I'm alone and I'm with myself, and I'm listening to myself. I'm connecting to my intuition. That's where my greatest and best ideas have come from, that time of aloneness. Even my dreaming, like when I start to think about what I want next, or the fun kind of visualizations, I really start thinking, what do I really want? And I connect to this part of myself that's got all these dreams and exciting aspirations. And I don't connect to that as much if I don't really have the quiet. It's very in the back, like it's in the background. I can't quite tune into it. I don't know if you have that experience, but that's definitely what I find. And there's a really beautiful quote by Clarissa Pinkola Estés, who wrote The Woman Who Run with Wolves. And she says, solitude is not absence, it is the presence of oneself. And her book is all about how women have to go from busy to quiet, and how the quietude, that's where we can actually really meet ourselves, is in that moment of being alone and saying, oh, there you are. I haven't seen you in a while. I've been too busy avoiding you. Yeah, it makes me wonder sometimes, when we're so busy, we're avoiding ourselves, when that's actually the one thing we need to do. Is we need to greet ourselves, we need to meet ourselves, and we need to listen to ourselves, and we need to feel our feelings. That's how we're going to move forward. So I love that quote. And of course, Thich Nhat Hanh says, solitude is not about being alone. It is about being free from the influence of others to hear your own heart, which is so true, because when we're constantly with other people, we're connecting on a different level, and we're not always listening to ourselves. This is my experience. When I'm in a group with others all the time, I'm not listening to myself as much as I wish. So, okay, do you agree with that? What do you think about that? Do you find it easy to drop into that state of solitude, or do you resist it tooth and nail because you just don't want to be with yourself? Now I just want to move into more coaching questions for you to see what you think. And thinking about, how can you shift from passive aloneness to intentional solitude? And when you're able to get into that solitude where there's just the feeling of peace around you, and you're fully accepting where you are in this moment. It can be a very high vibration feeling when I'm alone, because I connect with something inside that's actually very positive and very up, more than I sometimes remember. But when I'm still, I can connect with that energy. And I have a few prompts I want you to think about if you're slipping into that state. They are, what if this quiet time is preparing me for something bigger? And the next one is, what part of myself have I been avoiding that's asking to be seen? And another thing is asking yourself, can I create a ritual around my solitude to make it sacred? And I want to talk to you about that because there are rituals you can do to really go deeper into the solitude. So, one is having a solitude altar. So, if there's something, an area in your house that's screaming for decoration, you can maybe think about doing this. I'm going to do this, so I'm inviting you to do this with me, is to create a space in your home where you have a little altar. To be very small. It can be a windowsill. I'm thinking about my home. I'm thinking about a windowsill. And putting something there. I have this little Buddha I might put on mine and maybe a little jewelry or flower. And thinking about this is my solitude altar. And when I come together with myself and I think about that altar, I feel that inner peace that can only come from solitude. So when I have the altar, I can see it and remember that vibration of peace that lives within me, and I can connect to that peace. Another one is maybe going on a walk, but it's intentional, like having a peaceful walk of solitude where you can walk around a garden or park. And during that 15-minute walk, just being mindful of you're going into solitude. Mentally, it's peace. And you're at peace within and you're at peace without. And you're walking around and you just let yourself feel it through and through. So that's another great ritual. And another one is a candlelit journaling exercise. So when you light a candle and you sit completely alone, there's something very peaceful and sacred about that that can maybe tap into the energy of solitude. So which one of those three are you most likely to add to your life? I can tell you for me, as I said, it will be the altar, but I also would like to try this week to do one of those sacred walks. Maybe I'll do that every morning, just 10 minutes, just to connect to that energy of solitude and hopefully carry that with me throughout the day. So what do you think? Has this talk of changing the idea of loneliness to solitude, does it ring a bell for you? I know with my coaching clients, many of them are women who are seeking a relationship. And particularly some of the younger clients I have in mind, they tell me it's really hard to be alone. They feel very lonely. And of course, that's a very natural feeling. We are wired for connection. But when you are alone, being able to shift the lens to a sense of solitude could make the difference that you really want to make. So can you shift the lens from loneliness to solitude? And I just want to say thank you for joining me today on Her New Lens. I hope this episode helped you shift how you see your solitude from something painful or empty to something sacred and full of possibility. If this resonated with you, I'd like you to explore more through the New Lens method, my 4-phase coaching experience designed to help you see and live your life differently. You can find today's journaling prompts and a link to the blog post in the show notes. And if this episode brought you comfort, clarity, or inspiration,